Hello, I'm Linda Ann at Studio ABC. I'm a design team member for Paverpol USA. It's an amazing product that you can use to make three-dimensional art. I've started this armature made out of wire and tin foil and aluminum foil. And I have another video online that explains how to make an armature if you are not familiar with that. I'll put that in the description box below this video so you can find it. I reinforced the legs with extra wire on this one because she's going to be standing on one foot, so I wanted to be sure that that leg was particularly strong. And so I just tear off pieces of the aluminum foil and start wrapping and crunching, and I'm getting this as close to the shape, the final shape, as I can. And I just crunch and pinch and manipulate it until it goes into place. On this particular one, because I'm working for a finer detail than I have in some of the past sculptures, I'm really pressing it to tightly compact it. I intentionally stylized the legs into a longer length than might be customary. Every person is different. Some people do have long legs, but I particularly stretched the legs on this statue because it's going to add an element of grace and line movement in the final product. And you can see I don't care whether it's the shiny side up or the dull side up. It's not making any difference to me. The main thing is that I'm working on the shape. As you watch the video, you might occasionally notice that I'll pick up something like a metal spoon or the handle of some pliers to help me shape this. That's when I really need to compact it much harder to get the shape going correctly. I pulled the layer of aluminum foil out of the box and I just rip pieces off by hand so they're irregular, and sometimes that works for me. Sometimes I fold it over to get a thicker area in a particular place, like I want the upper leg thicker than as it goes down it becomes thinner, so I kind of roll that together at the top to create that. My first attempts to use aluminum foil as the base for an armature, I would try to begin at the very end, the tip end of the aluminum, and wrap it around that way, but it's not really necessary because you can pull it, you can start right in the middle and squeeze it and pull it until those ends are all compacted and ready to use. You may be able to see those three wires on the tip of the foot. Part of that is actually the shoe part of her foot, but the other two wires are so that I can attach it to a base. I left extra wires hanging out down there. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to use those yet, but I will figure it out. And I knew I needed something down there because she's going to be standing on the toe of the shoe. I think I'll go ahead and speed up the video now and let you watch me as I continue to compress and work with the aluminum to get a proper armature. My armature's all ready, and I'm ready to start covering with light skin color Paverpol. Paverpol comes in several different colors, but this is the one that I'm going to use on some strips that I've already prepared. This is just bleached muslin, and I've torn it into strips. I've found that if I do several of these at one time, the tackiness in it sets up because it's setting out in the air a little bit, and it's easier to attach. I have previously shaken and stirred the Paverpol, so it's all ready. All I have to do is open, and then I like to use a brush to apply the Paverpol to the fabric. It just seems to work better for me. I've done it a couple of different ways, and this is the way that I prefer. You can do it all kinds of different ways, as long as the Paverpol gets on the fabric. I did find this time around that using shorter strips was a little easier to manipulate and keep the strips open once they were dry, because many times they try to fold up on you if it's a very long strip of fabric. Once the Paverpol is attached and you pick it up, it tries to fold over on itself. So I found these shorter strips a little easier to manage this time. And as I said, I'm going to go ahead and soak several of them. I'm only going to soak them on one side this time. It'll penetrate through partially, but I'll use the side that I'm actually brushing to put against the sculpture. And that way, if I need to, then I can go over it on the outside with a brush. But it'll penetrate mostly all the way through the fabric. So these will be drying that I start first while I finish applying Paverpol to the rest of the strips, and then I'll start with these that are a little bit tacky, that have had a chance to dry just a short amount of time, and I'll start with those to apply to my wire armature, my armature that's wire and aluminum. I haven't found that it really matters where you start on the armature. I'm starting on the arm here, up next to the shoulder, but I haven't found that there's a magic formula where you need to start in any one specific place. It just, whatever is comfortable for you to work with. The spiral type of wrapping that I'm doing on this method gives me more than one layer of fabric in any area to make it a little more sturdy. Also, if a seam is sticking out just a little bit, I'll dab my finger into some Paverpol and smooth that out just by rubbing on it. So it's not going to be completely smooth. It's going to have sculptural effects, but when there is something sticking up in the wrong place, I'll do that. Sometimes I use the handle of a tool or a paintbrush or this metal spoon to help me smooth things out. When your strips get just a little too dry, you can go back over it and apply a little Paverpol with a brush, and that way you can mash down seams and make it a little smoother. The best way to make it smooth, though, is to cover the rough areas with a piece of fabric. And again, don't expect perfectly smooth results, because this is more of a metal look, a sculptural look. I think the tendency when you first start working with this is to have a porcelain doll look to it, and unless you have a base that's perfectly smooth, that's pretty hard to achieve. I just keep going over it with extra layers of fabric until I'm satisfied with the results. Okay, here's what she looks like, and I left some wire sticking out of her toe so that I could attach her to a board when she's dry. So I'm going to let her dry overnight. I flattened the wires out and twisted them into a figure 8 so that I can staple them onto the board. I'll do it like this. See, just like that. So I'm going to put some staples in there to hold it on. I noticed that my light skin tone didn't dry in even tones, so I'm going to use some radiant gels, these copper pearls, and I'm going to kind of touch that up and make it look a little more like metal. I am still learning about Paverpol. I don't know whether I didn't have it mixed up well enough or what it was that caused this to dry in kind of a splotchy look, but I'm going to go with that look. And this radiant gels will kind of bring out some of the imperfections. Actually, imperfection is not always a bad thing. But if for some reason you didn't like this, you could just paint it under. There wouldn't be a problem with that at all. I put a lot of staples in that board to get her foot attached to the board, and it's not pretty. So what I'm going to do is cover it with Paverpol, and then I'm going to lay some fabric on top of it to disguise it. Besides that, I really don't like the way the board looks anyway, so I want it to be covered with Paverpol and some fabric. I'm going to use the Paverpol stockinette to make her clothing, her dress. It drapes nicely. It's a knit type fabric, a little bit like cheesecloth, and it's 100% yes, it's 100% fabric, all right. It's 100% cotton. Natural fibers generally absorb better than a polyester fiber does, so it works really, really well with the Paverpol. And I don't normally dip my dip into my product like this, but this is almost empty, so I don't need to pour it out into another container. I forgot and left my rings on. That's not a good thing. I put them over here in water to soak. Don't leave your jewelry on when you're doing Paverpol. That's not a good idea. Anyway, here is the stockinette, and I like to stretch it all out. And I just play with it and drape it, see how it looks as I go. You could paint this or dye it, but I'm choosing to use the natural color. I kind of like the just monotones of having some natural colors together here on these sculptures. I'll just keep playing with it, pulling it around, draping it, as I said. In the package of stockinette, you'll get approximately 1 meter of this, and that goes a long, long way.